You are listening to Stories from the Heart, inspiring tales of life, love, and learning, presented by the Camarillo Healthcare District. In this episode, Gregory Morgan shares a story about young love, hard decisions, and a reunion that changes his life forever.
Like a million fathers before me, I gazed into a hospital nursery to see one special baby. Unlike most fathers, I believed that I would never see my baby again. The papers had been signed. The baby's birth certificate would show the names of his adoptive parents, and his pre-adoption information would remain sealed forever in Hartford, Connecticut. This was 1965, when an out-of-wedlock birth was an embarrassment to any respectable family. Although I was clueless about parenting, I wanted to marry that girl. If we had married, we might have risen to the needs of the moment, as many other young people have done. But before we finished college, our relationship was over. I was left with my guilt and shame and my hopes for the life our baby would have without us. Those events became a shameful secret that my family never shared with anyone else. But I never forgot that somewhere I had a son. In 1982, I was a research assistant at a medical school in Connecticut. My supervisor and I traveled one day to the public health department in Hartford to verify some of our research subjects. A concrete block structure inside that building contained the state's official vital statistics records. We researchers could enter that building within a building where ordinary citizens were forbidden. Inside, my supervisor pointed to a row of filing cabinets and said, "Those are the sealed adoption records. We don't need to see those." I pretended that this was not one of the most amazing opportunities that life could offer me. What I wanted to do was certainly illegal, but confident that I wouldn't get caught, I asked myself an ethical question. What harm would be done if I did nothing with the information there other than satisfy my curiosity? No harm, I decided. So I discovered that sealed adoption records means ordinary brown clasped envelopes that could easily be opened and then re-sealed. On a little scrap of paper, I copied the names and address of the adoptive parents of my son, who by then was a teenager named Matthew, and then I returned the documents to the drawer. For years, I did nothing with that precious scrap of paper. A mountain of fears precluded my contacting Matthew or his family. What if his parents hadn't told him he was adopted? What if they had not given him the loving home that his birth mother and I had hoped for? What if he hated us for giving him up for adoption? Years later, I moved to Florida and married a woman named Nancy, who had grown up near Hartford, Connecticut. Her mother still lived near Matthew's adoptive parents' home. Nancy was not content to let Matthew's story remain forever unfinished. One morning in 1991, when we were visiting her mother in Connecticut, Nancy said, "Greg, would it be all right if I call Matthew's adoptive parents? They might want to know about you, for medical reasons or whatever. I wouldn't have to say who I am, just offer my help." "No, don't open that door," I told myself. "You don't know what's in there, and once it's open, you can never close it." But decades of curiosity won out. "Okay, go ahead," I said. In the local phone book, Nancy found Matthew's father's number, and she dialed it. She started explaining why she was calling, but then she stopped, and her eyes widened. She pointed at the phone and silently mouthed, "It's him! He's on the phone!" Matt, then nearly 26 years old, had moved back in with his parents. Unaware that his mother, Judy, was answering the call, he had picked up an extension phone in another room just as Nancy started speaking. He said, "This is Matthew, and this is very much of interest to me." Nancy handed me the phone, and with that, I was speaking to the man who carried my DNA and to the woman who, with her husband, had given him a home and raised him to adulthood. I explained how I had discovered who they were and that I had refrained from interfering in their lives for years. I told them where Nancy and I were that morning, so close to their home. Matt said, I know that town well. I went to prep school there. Judy, with a graciousness that still amazes me, said, maybe I should get off the line now and let you two talk. Matt suggested that we meet on the town green at 11 that morning. My car has an unusual blue and black paint job, he said. You'll know it when you see it. Nancy and I arrived early on that sunny New England morning. The blue and black car pulled up across the grass from us. A tall young man got out and looked around. He looked a little like me. After our awkward introductions, I brought him over to meet Nancy. My parents would like to meet you, Matt said. They had suggested to Matt that we all meet the next day at the Rose Garden in a park near their home. The next day was crisp and sunny. The roses were blooming and the trees were ablaze with autumn colors. Matt led Dave and Judy, the man and woman who had loved my son as their own, toward us. They told us how they had tried for years to have a child and how Matt had filled the empty place in their family. I assured Matt that he was not the result of a casual fling. You were conceived in love, I told him. Judy handed me a manila envelope and said, this is for you. It contained photographs from Matt's childhood. One piece of the puzzle of Matt's life was still missing. I promised to find the woman who had given birth to him. After shaking hands with Dave and Judy, I reached out to shake Matt's hand, but he pulled me to him and hugged me. With our eyes filled with tears, Nancy and I turned away to return home. After days of research, I found a possible address for Heidi, Matt's birth mother, and sent a telegram saying, please call me, with my name and phone number. I knew I didn't need to say more. When Heidi called, she was as hesitant to start a relationship that was never supposed to happen as I had been. She asked if she could meet Nancy and me before meeting Matt. 3 weeks later, as Nancy and I flew north from Florida, Heidi flew east from Chicago. We met for lunch near Matt's home. Nancy and I did our best to calm Heidi's fears, and then we led her to the park where Matt would be waiting. The leaves, so colorful when Nancy and I had met Matt and his parents there a few weeks earlier, had turned brown. Despite the warmth of this November day, the last roses of the season had withered. We got out of our cars and saw Matt on the other side of a lawn. Nancy and I peeked around a tree to watch mother and son come together for a long, long hug. And then we slipped away to give them some time together. Years later, near Matt's new home in San Francisco, an extended family with relationships for which names have not been invented gathered for Matt's wedding. After years of being unable to have a child and then adopting Matt, Dave and Judy had been surprised by the births of 2 biological daughters, both legally Matt's sisters, though not biologically related to him. Heidi was never able to have another baby and eventually adopted a boy. In a sense, Matt's brother, though related to him neither biologically nor legally. All those people attended the wedding, as did I, childless except for the son who was not legally my son at all. My mother, whose only grandchild of any kind was Matt, also attended the wedding, as did my wife Nancy, a new kind of stepmother whose bold and loving efforts brought these remarkable relationships into the open. My secret is no longer a secret. My shame no longer a shame.
Thank you for listening to Stories from the Heart, inspiring tales of life, love, and learning, presented by the Camarillo Healthcare District. If you would like to share your story, please visit camhealth.com and fill out our form under Share Your Story. You'll work with a storytelling coach to fine-tune your story for broadcast. We are looking for people to share health or caregiver journeys, to talk about personal experience, moments in time, and lessons learned while navigating life. These life stories will paint a visual picture with words. They should be 5 to 10 minutes long and must be primarily about the storyteller and their truths, experiences, and emotions.